In 1937, the U.S. government drowned an entire Texas town. Residents watched their homes sink underwater. That town had paperwork, official records explaining why it died. Most of the other 899 ghost towns in Texas don't. Today, we're counting down 8 ghost towns where the collapse wasn't accidental. Towns where election results were overturned by gunfire, where residents abandoned furnished homes with no explanation, where the official story doesn't match what actually happened. Let's start with number 8. Number 8, Terlingua, the mercury problem. Terlingua produced 40% of America's quicksilver during World War I. Quicksilver is just another name for mercury. You know, that toxic liquid metal? They extracted it from cinnabar ore by heating it until the mercury separated. Pretty straightforward process. Also pretty dangerous. The Chisos Mining Company employed over 1,000 people at peak production, mostly Mexican immigrant workers living in segregated housing. The owner, Howard Perry, ran everything from Chicago through daily correspondence. He may have visited twice. Maybe. Here's the thing about mercury mining that nobody really talks about. The fumes cause something called salivation. Basically, your teeth loosen and fall out. The mines had terrible ventilation. Fatal accidents happened regularly. Workers lived in temporary shacks made of tin and canvas. And Perry? He built himself this sprawling mansion on the hill overlooking all of it. The mine filed for bankruptcy in 1942, right when World War II ended and mercury demand just collapsed. Workers scattered, the town died. Then something kind of unexpected happened in the 1970s. Artists and desert people started moving into the ruins. Today, about 100 people live there, making money off Big Bend National Park tourists and this annual chili cook-off that somehow draws 10,000 visitors. What gets me is that there are still 23 miles of mine tunnels beneath Terlingua, just capped and abandoned. The cemetery opened in 1902, specifically for miners who died extracting toxic metals. And now this town that naturally collapsed markets itself as an authentic ghost town experience, with restaurants operating in the old company buildings. The pattern here is worth noticing. Number 7, Glenrio, Exit 0. Glenrio sits exactly on the Texas-New Mexico border. Like, the town literally straddles the state line, which created some pretty creative business setups. All the gas stations were on the Texas side because New Mexico's fuel taxes were higher. All the bars were on the New Mexico side because deaf Smith County, Texas was dry. Railroad depot? Texas. Post office? New Mexico. When Route 66 was completed in 1938, Glenrio became Exit 0, the first and last stop between the two states. For 3 decades, it thrived on through traffic. Then, Interstate 40 got built in 1975, routing drivers around the town instead of through it. By 2000, the census counted 5 residents. Today, it's effectively abandoned. The official story is simple. The interstate killed Route 66 towns. Efficiency over experience. But here's where it gets interesting. Glenrio was a filming location for The Grapes of Wrath in 1940. It was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 2007 as one of America's best preserved mid-century ghost towns. And recently, something unexpected happened. A cannabis dispensary opened on the New Mexico side in 2022 after legalization, exploiting the same border advantage that once separated gas stations from bars. So the town that died from bypass traffic is now being revived by another form of commerce. The government doesn't particularly want advertised. Buildings are still standing with decades-old stuff inside. Gas pumps, motel signs, diner equipment, just preserved by abandonment rather than any kind of restoration. At least, that's the official version. Number 6, Independence, the railroad. They refused. Independence was the wealthiest community in Texas when Baylor University was established there in 1845. It had money, education, influence, everything. When the Santa Fe Railroad wanted to run a line through town in the 1880s, city officials and Baylor administrators just said no. Nobody actually wrote down why they refused. The historical record just notes the decision. That's it. Railway lines went to competing towns instead. Students couldn't get transportation to Baylor. The university relocated to Waco in 1885. Independence collapsed. What's left today? The Independence Baptist Church, where Sam Houston was baptized in 1854, the old cemetery, and the Margaret Houston House, where the former president of the Republic of Texas lived between political positions. The town that could have been Waco chose to protect something, maybe character, maybe control, I don't know, and paid for it by basically ceasing to exist. Here's what gets me though. Modern historians frame this as a mistake, like a failure of vision. But the people who actually made the decision were literally the wealthiest, most educated community in Texas at the time. They saw the railroad coming and said no anyway, which suggests they understood something we don't. Number 5. Idianola, the storms that weren't accidents. Idianola was the second most important port in Texas by the 1850s. European immigrants, mostly German, came through there. In 1856 and 1857, the U.S. military actually shipped camels to Idianola. This whole experiment by Secretary of War Jefferson Davis to transport supplies across the Southwest. Peak population hit over 5,000. Then, a hurricane hit in 1875. The town rebuilt. Another hurricane hit in 1886. And basically obliterated what they'd reconstructed. The site was abandoned. Here's what the tourism materials kinda gloss over. Idianola was the county seat of Calhoun County from 1852 to 1886. When that second hurricane destroyed the town, the county seat was moved to Port Lavaca. But hurricanes had hit the Texas coast before 1875. They hit after 1886. Idianola had survived since 1846 through multiple storm seasons. What changed wasn't the weather pattern, it was that after 2 catastrophic hits within 11 years, nobody invested in rebuilding a major port. The infrastructure money went elsewhere. The county seat moved, and a town that had processed thousands of immigrants and experimental military camels just stopped existing. Today, there's a cemetery, a fishing marina, and a granite monument to French explorer La Salle. That's all that marks what was once the second most important port in 19th century Texas. The storms did the physical damage, sure, but the decision not to rebuild, that's what actually killed Idianola. Number 4. Belle Plain, the Midnight Raids. Belle Plain won the Callahan County seat election in 1877. Then, Callahan City disputed the results. What followed were midnight raids and actual gunfire exchanges between the two towns. A second election gave the seat to Callahan City. Belle Plain started declining immediately. The documented facts are pretty sparse. We know the raids happened. We know shots were fired. We know Belle Plain lost its government status and then lost everything else. Harsh winter, drought, a railroad that got built through nearby Baird instead. Belle Plain College closed in 1892. By 1897, only 4 families were left. What's preserved today? The cemetery where the oldest marked grave belongs to Virgil Hill, 16 years old, dated 1878. The college ruins. The former dean's residence is just slowly falling apart. The weird detail nobody really explains is how a town that won an election ended up losing a violent dispute over government authority. Like, election results were literally overturned through force. And the historical record treats this as a footnote. The college closed, the families left, and the town that briefly held legal power just disappeared while its violent rival took over. That's where it gets a little strange. Number 3. Medicine Mound, what the Comanche knew. Medicine Mound gets its name from 4 dolomite mounds that the Comanche used as ceremonial sites. The town had 500 people and 22 businesses at its peak. Then, a fire in 1932 destroyed a bunch of buildings. The school closed in the 1950s. The post office closed. The cotton gin shut down. What's left? The Hicks Cobb General Store, the post office building, a gas station with rusty pumps, and the W.W. Cole building that used to house a bank and pharmacy. So here's the thing. The Comanche considered those mounds sacred. When Anglo settlers built a town there, they built it directly on top of ceremonial grounds. The town lasted maybe 50 years before everything just systematically collapsed. The fire in 1932 wasn't suspicious or anything. Fires happen in small towns all the time. But the complete institutional shutdown that followed, that suggests something beyond normal economic decline. The mounds are still there, the town is gone, and tourists can visit the remaining buildings while standing on land that was sacred to people who were systematically removed from it. Nobody calls that ironic in the brochures. Number 2. Toyah, the haunting nobody investigates. Toyah got established in the early 1880s as a railroad trading post. It became the oldest town site in Reeves County. At peak population, it had 4 churches, 2 hotels, 2 banks, a drugstore, and 2 lumber yards. Then, It just slowly declined throughout the 20th century, with no defining event to explain the collapse. The 2010 census listed 90 residents. Lots of buildings are still standing with furnishings and fixtures intact. The high school is particularly notable. This sizable brick structure, abandoned but preserved. Local stories claim it's haunted by the ghosts of children who wander the streets at night. Some theories even suggest these hauntings drove residents away. Here's what makes Toyah different from every other ghost town. They all have clear causes: mining collapse, bypass transportation, natural disaster, and violent conflict. Toyah just emptied. No economic catastrophe, no route changes. The decline was gradual and unexplained. And instead of demolishing abandoned buildings or repurposing them, Toyah left everything standing, furnished, like people just walked away and never came back. The haunting stories might be local folklore, sure, but when a town slowly dies with no clear reason, and residents leave behind fully furnished buildings, and the only explanation anyone offers involves ghosts of children, that suggests people don't want to discuss the real reason they left. Number 1. Bluffton, the town under the lake. Bluffton was completely submerged when the Buchanan Dam was built in 1937, creating Lake Buchanan outside Austin. The entire town went underwater. During the 2009 drought, water levels dropped and the ruins resurfaced. When lake levels are low, you can actually see cracked tombstones, the old cotton gin, the bank, hotel, and home foundations along the sandy Bluffton Peninsula. Boat tour operators take visitors out to look at it. This one is documented, right? The dam was federal infrastructure. Bluffton was in the flood zone. Residents got relocated. The town was sacrificed for the regional water supply and hydroelectric power. What's kind of surreal is that Texas has its own lost city of Atlantis that you can visit when drought conditions are bad enough. The ruins emerge. Tourists take photos. Then the water rises again, and Bluffton disappears. It's the only ghost town on this list that was intentionally drowned by government planning, and somehow, that makes it easier to accept than the others. At least there was a reason. A dam, a bureaucratic decision, at least someone signed paperwork. The other 7 towns just have stories that don't quite add up. Bluffton proves that ghost towns can be created on purpose, with planning and documentation, which raises this uncomfortable question about the other 899 scattered across Texas. How many were actually abandoned through market forces and bad luck? And how many were systematically erased by decisions nobody wanted to write down? The pattern suggests the latter is way more common than anyone wants to admit. And there are still hundreds more across this state, most of them without tour operators or historical markers. Most of them are just quietly forgotten. Look, ghost towns aren't really about the buildings that are left behind. They're about the decisions that hollowed them out. Economic choices, infrastructure routing, power struggles, and land use planning that prioritized some communities while just abandoning others. They're evidence that human settlement is way more fragile than we like to pretend, that entire towns can vanish within a generation when the conditions shift. Texas markets its ghost towns as these spooky roadside attractions, but they're actually archives of how power works. Who gets the railroad? Who gets bypassed? Who gets relocated when a dam needs to be built? Who gets to tell the official story afterward? The ruins are still there if you want to see them for yourself. I'll keep finding the world's hidden corners. You just have to click subscribe to come along.